Hey, what's going on, friends and family? My name is Skylent. Gameplay in the background is of Don't Starve Together. Had a lot of fun there with twitch.tv/IcingAshley and her friends and stuff. So, really cool game, pretty popular in, a lot of circles. But overall, the genre that it sort of exists in is pretty popular, actually, especially with streamers and people who enjoy multiplayer games. I think it's something that's just very trending in a day that we are generally looking forward to, a very online experience, a very social and, multiplayer experience. Survival games, where you have to rely on other players and you directly interact with them, sometimes in toxic ways, but sometimes in collaborative ways. It's just really cool to see that dynamic, in a lot of games, and people really want that, especially in the MMO space. God, dude, we want a hardcore, experience like that, but a lot of people are getting that experience in these, they're not quite MMOs, but they are, they're pretty big multiplayer experiences. They range from like 20 people in a server to hundreds, or at least 100, right? They max at 100, I think. And, this is the survival genre. This is the multiplayer server survival genre, however you try to define it. Most of the time, though, they're cooperative or competitive survival experiences, and they're extremely prolific. There's just a lot of them coming out. And I'm not here to excoriate this genre at all, actually. I'm here to really kind of berate you guys a little bit, and maybe that sounds pretty toxic to my own community, but basically, if you clicked on this video, you probably, I think, generally from trends I've seen on my other videos, you tend to be of a more negative mindset towards certain genres, especially since I, particularly already mentioned it, I specialize in massively multiplayer games, and I mentioned on forum posts and in videos before that, if you're looking for a hardcore sort of survivally experience, then you should go to literally the survival genre. I know it's not technically massively multiplayer, but you can play with dozens to hundreds of other players in these games, and there's actually more social, overall a more social experience. There's more socialness happening, whether it's toxic or collaborative, a community-based or otherwise. There's more interaction with other people, even in many or most MMOs. So that's where I'm coming from, guys. I think this genre is pretty neat. Now, it is prolific. There's a lot of them out there. There's so many out there, and the gameplay in the background is one of my favorites. But I also want to use the game in the background, Don't Starve Together, as a prime example of this genre, even though it's actually really limiting. I just want to say that for those of you who just see this genre and you're just like, oh, another early access survival game. Wow, we have so many of these. The truth is that yes, we do have so many of these, but of course, being early access and a lot of these being independently developed, because that's why they need to be early access, so they can afford to actually, fund development and go further and farther, and just do so much more. Just do so much more with the game. Even though I know it is kind of money grabby with some of these games, especially H1Z1, I have to admit it, but whatever. Anyways, these games need to be early access, and they are so prolific, but there's actually a lot of differences between these games. Once you actually start playing them, even if they aesthetically look similar, or if they look completely dissimilar, they can be, more or less the same, or they can be completely different, depending on, you just gotta play them. You really just gotta play them, and it depends on so many different mechanics that you, as somebody who is just being blind and ignorant to the entire genre, because there's just so many, if I play one, I've played them all. No, you haven't. They might look similar. Yes, they might all have crafting, but some of them do crafting completely different. Don't Starve Together being one of the prime examples there, or Don't Starve, the single player component, actually has a huge focus on survival. It is very difficult, and there is a huge amount of uniquity with its mechanics, and it can feel totally different. All the different characters also bring a level of, interesting collaborative effort, so I play as Weber, mainly. That's who you're watching me play as, and I can actually utilize spiders. I can provide silk or spider web to a lot of my team members. A lot of the times, IcingAshley plays as the fire starter chick, whatever. I don't know. I always set her in charge of setting fire to a lot of trees and getting our charcoal running, so we can cook a lot of food in the crock pot. So the crafting and everything in Don't Starve, really unique. The characters, there's a lot of things I can go on and on about that specific game, but the same thing about all these other games. Even H1Z1, which is literally just a copycat game, actually has its own unique mechanics, and that's been translated into King of the Kill, and a lot of people like it. Even though it's overall not that polished of an experience, it's a unique thing. Okay, at the same time, it's copycat, but for what it is, it's the only game that you can, you spend $20, you get into it, and you're actually getting for the most part, okay, I'm trying to say so many different things, but it is a competent, competitive game. But at the same time, of course, I do want to harsh it for being, lackluster. It could be better, and I do believe the company Daybreak Games is very money grubby. I've said it in multiple videos, but still, at the same time, Otherwise, you just have to get a mod, and you're not really getting full support for, you know, like the battleground, battle royale, style gameplay. And this H1Z1 is the only one that's fully, you know, going for that kind of gameplay. Now, its survival component is probably not that great. In fact, I have to say that there's been some games like, you know, Infection Survival Stories or the War Z, which actually had some unique survival mechanics that you only saw in like Arma or whatever, where you could actually see the items, you know, exist in real time on shelves or inside cars. And I think H1Z1 eventually added that in. But at the time, for this really shitty game, which was literally just copied and pasting from DayZ, it was the only game at the time that was, I guess, kind of fully featured. It wasn't just a mod, and you could play it and buy it. So yes, even the shitty versions, I will, you know, even the worst examples of this genre, which is what pretty much everyone cites, they still actually have some unique things to them, which can make the experience interesting. At least you'll remember it, right? So there is like stuff to play in these games. Even if they seem copy and paste, there is always going to be at least something new and interesting. Okay, maybe not always, but for the most part, when I've played these games from Don't Starve, yes, obviously Don't Starve looks really fucking different, obviously. So let's go and use examples of like 7 Days to Die. You have The Forest too. The Forest at first glance kind of looks similar to a lot of games, but its crafting wholly unique. Its survival elements is more cooperative. It's mainly focused on co-op gameplay or single player gameplay. The monsters are really cool and interesting. The overall the aesthetic and the graphics are more immersive, way more immersive. And there's just a lot of interesting things, from the rafts to the sort of like, I don't know, kind of like Survivor Man-esque feel to the game. You start with sticks and stones and you don't really go up from there. It's not like you're gonna have like fucking machine guns that I'm aware of so far. So you're gonna have a unique experience with that. And then you have some other games that just focus on like realistic survival, where you have like, you know, temperature gauges and stuff like that. Actually, a lot of these do have temperature gauges, but there's some that's like you're surviving in like the Siberian, you know, Russian, I don't fucking know, it's the fucking Antarctica, I don't know. There's some other things where you're in different scenarios, from islands to, you know, more colder climates, and just the different climates actually make a survival game completely different, because you have different ways to survive, and you have different things that you're hunting for and gathering for and doing. So even if you had the raw mechanics of, like, let's say The Forest, if The Forest was exactly the same, but like in the mountains, so maybe we could call The Forest like The Caves, it would be, well, I mean, there's caves in the forest, but you know what I mean, guys. If you're mainly underground, then the mechanics they're the exact same, but it's gonna feel completely different, because that's just how the genre works. It's a survival game. Then of course you do have games like Ark, okay, and there's a lot of games that are kind of copying Ark. Absolutely, there are. And there is some shadiness going on with the Ark. It could be a better game than what it is, especially for what they're asking for money and stuff like that. But it's still a unique experience. And even though there's some other like zombie survival games and stuff like that, this game has dinosaurs. It has monsters. It's a monster survival game. It is mostly multiplayer. And the way that it works is that you're not just like fucking like zombies. Generally, they tend to be dumb, right? They tend to be dumb. Some games do them a little bit differently, but for the most part, they tend to be dumb. So in Ark, you have these freaking dinosaurs, and you can actually ride the dinosaurs, tame them. And yes, it gets cheesy. It gets awkward. You go from sticks and stones from like fucking crazy technology and bullshit. I don't know. It gets really cheesy, I'll admit it, but at the same time, it's a unique experience. And whether or not you think it's worth the money, I don't know, that's up for debate, but it's still, you shouldn't just talk down to it like it's the worst game ever, because you can see the reviews and you see the popularity of the game. It's generally not horrible, okay? And I know popularity doesn't mean that it's a good game. Definitely, you can advertise the shit out of a game, which Ark has been doing, but in my opinion, I think Ark is a interesting game. It's at least an interesting game, and it's at least not a bad game. But a lot of people will tell you that it's another early access survival game. It's not, dude. It's got fucking dinos, okay? It's actually pretty unique. There's actually some games where you play as dinosaurs, and they're not great games. But I actually don't regret the $20 I spent on them for the one time I played them, because it was a unique event where I played as a fucking Tyrannosaurus Rex. I'm totally cool with that. That was actually okay. I didn't continue playing because it was kind of shitty, but still, guys, the early access survival genre, it's definitely niche. It's a lot more niche than its popularity would have you believe, because a lot of people are playing these kind of games, because you can it's kind of sandboxy in a way. Like, you can do what you want to an extent, and to some of these games, it's a little bit more open than other games. Like Ark, you can do a whole lot more. Don't Starve Together is a bit more constrained, but it does have a bigger focus on, you know, actually the survival component and the cooperation component. And you just got to remember that, guys. Even though it says early access survival, it doesn't mean they're all literally the same. Even though that's kind of the big mindset, even though the games, some look the same, they actually can mechanically be very different, and that's why they are popular, because some people can actually see the uniquities in these games, even in the bad games. I have to say, one of my life-changing experiences in a video game came from the game The War Z. honest to God, guys, honest to Zeus, like, I seriously, I can't believe that shitty game. I was literally in the middle of making a video talking about how shitty the game is, and I had my first fight or flight experience ever in real life or otherwise inside a video game, inside probably one of the worst video games. So I'm just saying, guys, don't talk down to other people that are interested in a particular genre, and don't just throw away an entire genre just because of a conception that a community at large has, okay? You need to play these games individually and review them individually for what they are, because you might have some unique experience there. Good or bad or otherwise, I'm pretty sure that a lot of these games, because of, they are indie, they are early access, they are evolving, they're trying, to do some weird shits, okay? Even though some of them look copy and paste, you gotta try them first, and then kind of review them on their own, okay? That's all I'm saying. Don't parrot what you just read on the internets. That's all. Some of these games are really cool. Some are focused on single player. Some are more multiplayer. Some are more massively multiplayer than others. And I think that, just keep that in mind. Just keep that in mind. Just because it's in a genre doesn't mean they're all the same, even if they look aesthetically similar. Just like, modern military. Battlefield and Call of Duty, totally different games. They really are. Totally different. Mechanically, they could be the same game if you made the levels the same, but they're not. Okay, so just keep that in mind, guys. Thanks for watching. That's all I got to say. My name's Skylent. Hope you had fun with a little podcast or whatever, and I'll see you in the next one.